Good evening. We have record-breaking attendance here, as we did this afternoon for the Veterans Breakfast. It was a full house, and I see most of the folks that were at the luncheon are here again, and we're fortunate enough to have Todd make a return trip to Masonic Village after his excellent presentation, and tonight's will be even better. Let us please stand, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Todd really needs no introduction from me, but Mim is going to give us her introduction.
Here we go. Thank you so much. 106 years ago on this day, November 11th, 11 o'clock, guns fell silent and the world breathed again. Armistice Day, now called Veterans Day, is a day to honor all who have worn the uniform, served with courage, and defended this great land, and that includes my sister Rose Carlo Gantner among them too. And now, just 8 hours after this morning's ceremonies in the USA Today, here we are, continuing that legacy to honor by gathering as a community to celebrate, remember, and give thanks. But today is extra special. We're blessed to have Todd DiPestino with us, who has made it his life's work to collect, preserve, and amplify the stories of America veterans. Todd isn't just a storyteller. He's a story keeper and the founder and executive director of the Veterans Breakfast Club, a nationally respected nonprofit. Todd has opened doors and pulled up chairs for thousands of veterans to share their stories in their own voices. Stories that otherwise might have been lost to time. Stories that connect generations, stories that remind us that history is not in the books, it's in the people sitting right here beside us. And Todd is in demand, from national media to classrooms, libraries, civic halls. People want to hear what he has to share. So having him here with us on this particular day twice is such a great big honor. And as we look around the room and see fewer of the brave men and women who wore the uniform, the importance of Todd's mission shines brighter than ever. So ladies and gentlemen, with gratitude, admiration, full hearts, please join me in warmly welcoming our friend, our historian, the civic leader, the servant of memory and honor, Mr. Todd DiPestino.
The master of disaster, the king of rock and roll. All right. There we go. I thought today I was here, as Mim said earlier today. I made some remarks about the history and future of Veterans Day. I thought I would expand on that a little bit tonight and then invite some of the veterans in the room to share a story or two about their service. I think that would be a wonderful thing to do on this Veterans Day. Some of you may be old enough to remember when Veterans Day was called Armistice Day, exactly. And Armistice Day was the day, the name that we gave to November 11th, 1918, at 11 o'clock, the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month, when the guns fell silent on the Western Front after 4 years of war and a lot of carnage, the war was finally over. And all the armistice meant at the time was a ceasefire. There was no treaty, there was no peace. There was a skeleton of kind of terms of the end of the war, but it meant that the dying would end. And that was enough to be really a big day of celebration. And it was here, it was certainly so in Europe. And the reason, of course, was because of the unbelievable casualties of World War I. And we've talked about that here before. 20 million people, mostly in Europe, died in those 4 years of war, mostly combatants, mostly military soldiers on the ground in the Eastern Front and the Western Front. Some countries suffered worse than others. Great Britain, almost 1 million killed. France, 4.3% of its population killed. The Russian Empire, 3.3 million. The German Empire, 2.5 million. I mean, the numbers are, Europe certainly had never seen numbers like this. The world had never seen numbers like this. And the carnage was just so great that just the day that it ended became a day of celebration. A year later, in 1919, we started having parades to commemorate the 1 year anniversary of Armistice Day. And it was something of a celebration here in the US, also in Europe. But by 1920 and in subsequent years, I think especially in the British Commonwealth countries and in France, Armistice Day became more a day of reflection and remembrance. In fact, Great Britain called it Remembrance Day. And that's still what it's known as in Canada, say, and then in New Zealand and in Australia. This is the day to remember those killed now, not only in the Great War of 1914 and 1918, but in all the wars that these countries have fought. It's the day, it's their Memorial Day. In the United States, we already had Memorial Day. That day had come out of the Civil War. We didn't need another one. So November 11th inhabited this strange territory in our culture that it didn't function as Remembrance Day like it did in France and Great Britain. And it didn't really function as Armistice Day had, because we didn't lose, we lost a tiny fraction of the soldiers that the belligerent powers in Europe lost. And there was, by the 1920s, a sense of regret in this country that we had even gotten involved in that war, which seemed to settle so little. So Armistice Day kind of lost its hold on the American imagination and the American sense of commemoration of the Great War. And so I think we did with Armistice Day what we do with a lot of holidays in this country when we really don't know quite what else to do. We played football. It was the day for college football. I mean, and high school football. It was the biggest games of the year were scheduled on Armistice Day. It was synonymous with football. Look at this old poster for Duquesne versus Pitt. Wow. November 11th, 1933. And you can see the football being played and the soldier hovering in the background. Football here tomorrow, Armistice Day, 2 big games. This was all over the country, and it was every year, annual Armistice Day games. The American Legion had a big role to play. They wanted Armistice Day to have some kind of significance here. And so actually the American Legion sponsored football games on November 11th. And also it became the day for Army-Navy games, for inter-service games. The Marines would play the artillery would play the infantry. It was a day that the armed forces took off to play football. And that's kind of the extent of what Armistice Day meant for much of our history. In 1938, Congress decided to make Armistice Day the 7th, I think it was the 7th, federal public holiday. But they wanted to give it more gravitas, more meaning. than just a day for football. So they created, according to this act, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace. Armistice Day was a holiday dedicated to world peace. And that was declared and signed into law, I think it was signed into law finally June 1st, 1938. Think about that. Think about what was happening in the world in 1938. I mean, bitterly ironic that the world was anything but peaceful. Nazi Germany was very much on the march. It had not yet invaded Poland. It would do that in a year and a few months later. But it had completed the Anschluss, the takeover of Austria. It was kind of poised to start its invasion or incursion into Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland. It had already taken the Rhineland, it had taken back the Saarland. And so Germany, Nazi Germany was on the move, and perceptive observers saw that they were going to keep on moving, and that this aggression, the rise of a newly militarized, aggressive Germany was probably going to cause the World War to start up again, which of course it did in 1939. And in Asia, there's the Rhineland and there's Austria, the Anschluss. In Asia, the Japanese were doing something very similar. They had already moved into Manchuria, the densest populated and richest part of China. By 1938, it was spreading west and south. It was already making plans to invade French Indochina, which we call Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and the rest of Southeast Asia. So Japan also was on the move. And so to have a holiday dedicated to world peace, boy, it seemed like a little too little too late to stop the spread of what was going to be another great war. And of course the Great War came. And it came and it dwarfed what World War I had done. Much larger, involving many more people, much more destructive, much more deadly. 4 times the Americans served in World War II than served in World War I. The destruction was off the charts. 4 or 5 times the amount of death occurred in World War II that had occurred in World War I. And of course, World War II was really the sequel to World War I. It was that armistice that was signed on November 11th, 1918, it truly was a ceasefire that lasted 21 years. And then it expired and the war started up again in new form, and we call that World War II. So this was just utterly catastrophic. This is the center number here, 75 million total deaths that can be accounted for in World War II. That's kind of at the low end of the estimate. The higher end is 125 million deaths that may be accounted for. And these spokes represent countries. And so the Soviet Union, 24 million dead, China, 20 million dead. Germany lost 3 times the number in World War II than it had in World War I. Poland, 5.6 million. The black represents the military deaths and the red civilian deaths. So many more civilians died in World War II compared to World War I. So this set the stage for a reconsideration of Armistice Day. How could you still commemorate November 11th as a day dedicated to world peace, as a day dedicated to a ceasefire that occurred in 1918? It just seems so far beyond the point. And then, of course, after the guns fell silent in World War II, 80 years ago, you had the prospect of a World War III that might break out. And that happened very quickly. Everybody knew that the Soviet plan for a conventional war in Western Europe meant a massive movement of millions of Red Army soldiers west so quickly that they would reach Paris in 7 days. And then add on top of that the threat of nuclear war. And you have a situation in a country where Armistice Day just seems insignificant compared to the catastrophe that the world had just witnessed and endured in the 1940s and the catastrophe that may lay ahead with nuclear war. One man, Raymond Weeks, a Navy vet, there on the right, who lived in Birmingham, Alabama in 1946, he wrote a famous letter to General Dwight Eisenhower, pictured there on the left, suggesting that we should change Armistice Day to Veterans Day. So many people, Weeks said, had served in World War II. So many Americans were still alive who had served in World War I. There were still Civil War veterans living in 1946. There were Spanish-American War veterans living. Philippine insurrection veterans were still around. And Raymond Weeks suggested, you know, we have all these people now in this country who know war. Let's honor them with a day, and we'll call it Veterans Day. That letter went unanswered, but Raymond Weeks and a few of his friends and civic leaders in Birmingham, Alabama, did follow up in 1947. They declared Birmingham, Alabama, that November 11th would hereby be known as Veterans Day. They stopped calling it Armistice Day, and in 1947, Birmingham, Alabama held the first Veterans Day parade. And they still very much are very proud that they are the birthplace of the Veterans Day parade. Dwight Eisenhower, who received that letter from Raymond Weeks, would eventually, of course, become president, and Congress would get the attention, would pay attention to what was happening in Birmingham. Congress proposed a simple change to November 11th, and that was this. It is that November 11th is hereby, or the act creating November 11th as a legal holiday is hereby amended by striking out the word armistice and inserting in lieu thereof the word veterans. So that's it. June 1st, 1954, Armistice Day becomes Veterans Day, and it becomes a day to honor all veterans. And you know, it made perfect sense to transition from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. I love this short little newspaper article, Veterans Day, and actually they make a mistake. Yes. Common mistake, right, Eleanor? Veterans, oh, you know I'm married to a retired English teacher. I've spent 30 years being tortured. I mean, it was a happy marriage, but grammar, man. Veterans Day is not possessive. It's not a possessive. Some people spell it Veterans Day apostrophe S. What veteran? Whose veteran is, yeah, whose day is that? Right. Yeah, that's one veteran. And even Veterans Day, the plural possessive, that's not it. It's called, there's no apostrophe. It's attributive. It's the attributive sense. What that means, I don't know. But I do know it's attributive. Okay, so here it is. Armistice Day is no more. Not because the people of the world are any less peace-minded than they were in the past, but simply because Armistice Day has long since lost its original meaning. The new observance beginning today, November 11th, will each year be Veterans Day. The men who have served our nation eminently, and women, eminently deserve such tribute, and a grateful people will happily accept this opportunity to express their heartfelt thanks to all ex-servicemen. And that was perfectly reasonable. It was an excellent day in a country where we did have a large population of veterans, and because of the Cold War draft, you know, it meant that this country was still recruiting and drafting and conscripting young men into military service. And every month, by 1960, every month, I just read this recently, 100,000 Americans got discharged from the military every month in 1960. 100,000. That meant we were generating, you know, all of these veterans every year, to the point where by 1970, something like almost half of all adult men had served in the military. Almost half. So Veterans Day was a day to honor them and recognize them and thank them. And then the number of veterans in our country just fell off a cliff. and has continued to fall. This is the percentage of U.S. veterans declining, and I think this is a percentage of adult male population. You can see reaches a high of something like 45% right here in 1970, and then it starts to drop. And it has been dropping to the point where I think today maybe 12% of all adult men have served in the military, 6% of the adult population, 6% have served in the military. And that number keeps declining, of course, because our military has shrunk with the transition to the all-volunteer force, the end of the draft in 1973, and then the end of the Cold War. And the numbers keep on falling. You can see here, this is the percentage of the US population on active duty. You can see how it fell during Korea and Vietnam, and then fell even more to the point where, here we are today, it's less than 1/2 of 1%. Less than 1/2 of 1% of our nation's population serves on active duty in the military. It's the smallest percentage since before Pearl Harbor. It's a tiny percentage, and it's going to get smaller. We know that. The Army has already announced it. The Navy has already announced it. The Air Force has already announced it, because they've all been conducting highly successful trials of these things. AI and robotics, uncrewed ships, unpiloted aircraft, and robot soldiers. And the leap in kind of technological, ability of these weapons it has been so great that the Army has said that it looks forward to, looking ahead, it estimates that the Army might cut 1/3 of its personnel by the year 2040. 1/3. And if that does happen, that means we'll have 2% of our population as military veterans. I mean, when I was growing up, that's so strange to me to think about. Because when I was growing up in Mount Lebanon, my neighbors were all veterans. My uncles were veterans. I had an aunt who was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. I mean, they were everywhere. Today, it's very easy to kind of, leave your house, take a walk, go to the store, go to work, come home, and never encounter a veteran. There just aren't that many around, and there won't be many around in 2040. So what are we going to do with Veterans Day? Seriously. We're going to is it just going to be like honoring the past? Is it going to be, you're telling me we're going to have a public federal holiday for 2% of the population? We're going to be looking left and right for a veteran to buy a cup of coffee. We'll be grabbing people on the street. There just won't. Who's going to organize a Veterans Day parade? Who is going to serve as color guard and honor guard? Who is going to organize the Marine Corps ball? Who's going to show up at Veterans Breakfast Club events? I mean, we're just not going to have a lot of military veterans to honor. So I think we should consider kind of recasting or reimagining what Veterans Day really is. And I was reflecting on this not long ago, because as you may know, I'm not a veteran, and I don't come from a military family. So veterans, everything I learned about veterans, I've learned from spending time with them in the Veterans Breakfast Club over the past 17 years and hearing their stories. And hearing their stories has made a huge impact on me. And I've spent years trying to figure out and to explain to others what that impact is. Why veterans are a special population, and I do believe they're a very special and important population, and what we can learn from veterans. And I thought about the core values that our veterans embody. When I'm talking to a veteran and they're talking back to me, I almost hear values like honor, integrity, respect, excellence, pride, all of these things that are such important core values in every branch of service. And each branch of service does have explicit core values. The Navy and the Marine Corps, very simple. Honor, the quality of consistently adhering to a higher standard of personal conduct and treating others with dignity and respect. Courage, the mental, moral, and physical strength to do what is right, even in the face of adversity. Commitment, the spirit of devotion to duty, professionalism, and a willingness to make personal sacrifices for the good of the Corps and the nation. These are the 3 core values of the Navy and the 3 core values of the Marine Corps. I happen to find the Air Force core values especially interesting. They're different. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And what really turned me on to this whole thing about core values was a conversation I had recently with an Air Force veteran who graduated from the Air Force Academy and had a terrible experience in the Air Force. He didn't like it. He did his, 6 years, but they weren't happy years. He had bad leadership. He saw war, the worst of war, and he didn't have much good to say about the Air Force. And I asked him a question that I often ask veterans who've had bad experiences. Would you do it again? And he said, oh yeah. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? You just spent the past hour telling me this horrible story. Why would you do it again? And he kind of fished for an answer because they don't quite know why. They know, but they don't quite know what to say. And what he ended up saying I thought was so interesting. He said, the Air Force taught me my core values that I used throughout my life. And they enriched my life, and they kept me on a path. And he explicitly said, integrity first, honesty, accountability, and courage, service before self, the professional commitment to the military mission, personal desires and goals are secondary to the needs of the nation, excellence in all we do, a commitment to continuous improvement in every aspect of an airman's duty. He said these values, I internalized them at the Air Force Academy, and I'm so grateful that they've been a part of me ever since. And I think that expresses the experience of a lot of our veterans. You learn something in basic training and boot camp. Yes, you probably learn how to march, you learn how to salute, you learn how to fire a weapon, you learn how to get yelled at. You learn a lot. But I think more than anything else, you get indoctrinated. You get inducted into a culture, a subculture with its own language, its own ethic, its own standards of behavior that are encompassed in many ways by these core values. Now, the Army also has core values. I'm not getting into them because for some reason they decided to come up with 7 core values. I think they should pare that down. But here's something I was playing with the other day. Well, what if we flash ahead to Veterans Day 2040? This might be, what if we took Veterans Day and focused it on some core values? It's not necessarily a day where you have to go out and buy a veteran a cup of coffee or shake their hand and thank them for their service. But it's a day to reflect on the values that our military veterans embody. And here are just 3 of them. Honor. Honor is more than medals or uniforms. It's how we carry ourselves in every moment. It's the quiet strength that shapes character and inspires others. Service and everyday acts of care and contribution. It's teachers guiding students, cooks preparing food, drivers delivering packages, neighbors lending a hand. Service before self. It's courage. Courage means doing what is right, seeking justice, speaking the truth, and facing the unknown with resolve and faith in one another. What if we took these values and made them the center of Veterans Day? That, I think, would be a worthy goal, because I think if we focused on these values, I think it would make us a better country, a better people, a better community. I think veterans have a lot to teach us, but we have to do more than just shake their hand and thank them for their service. I think we have to listen. Thank you. Okay, now is the fun part of the, yes, Eleanor.
Well, that raises a question in my mind, and that is, would it not therefore have benefits if everyone served in a branch of the military?
Yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think of some kind of universal military service? Man, it's so hard to imagine, isn't it? Hard to imagine this country putting up with universal military service. But boy, I don't think there are many people who wouldn't benefit from it.
Right.
You know, I really don't. I want to say, Karen let me know that there's going to be transportation here at our next Veterans Breakfast Club event in Sewickley, which is at Christchurch Grove Farm, on Wednesday, December 10th. Please do sign up and join us. We'd love to have you. You do not need to be a veteran to attend. We'd love to have you, and if you are a veteran, we'd love to, if you'd want to share your story at this event. It's always a wonderful event at this church. We have a wonderful space. We take it over. It's a heck of a lot of fun. So join us if you can. But I thought I would go around and kind of do what I do at the Veterans Breakfast Club here. At the Veterans Breakfast Club, you generally have a choice whether you want to share a story or not. Tonight, you do not. You just, hi, Dick, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
You are, I believe, the only World War II veteran here in the room. You're 98 years old.
Yes, I am.
And how did you end up serving you were in the Army Air Corps. How did you end up serving? Did you get drafted?
I enlisted.
You enlisted. And did you volunteer for the Air Corps specifically?
Young men of 17, you too could wear a pair of silver wigs.
So you imagine you might become a pilot flying a fighter, a P-38 or a P-51.
P-51, that was my favorite airplane.
So did you end up flying a P-51?
No, I ended up flying a Jeep.
What was your job in the Air Corps?
Military policeman.
You were an MP.
Yes.
Where were you an MP?
Panama City, Florida.
Did you capture any Germans in Panama City, Florida?
No, didn't even catch cold.
Now, did you, MPs, military police, I mean, one of the things that you do is you break up bar fights, you arrest, people who are, did you do any of that stuff?
No. Traffic was my main problem.
Yeah, you direct traffic.
That's about it.
Do you remember VJ Day?
Yes, I do.
That was 80 years ago in August.
I was on basic training at the time.
Really?
And now a outside camping trip.
You heard that the war was over.
We heard it before we left. They had dropped some kind of a bomb and nobody knew what it was or anything. So we went ahead and did our basic training and took what they had to offer in the way of jobs.
Yeah.
And MP was one that was available.
So looking back all these years later, was it a good experience for you?
It was a good experience. I wouldn't advocate it as a universal thing for everybody, but
You would not. You would not advocate what we were just talking about at Universal.
no. No, I wouldn't advocate that. Not in the U.S.
We're too individualistic.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dick, very much. We have another, technically she's not a veteran, but she served in the USO. Yeah, Pat Doherty, would you mind standing up? Would you stand up? Oh my gosh, Pat, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in so
I
long.
know, it's my fault.
Boy, I'm so rude, but I'm gonna ask you, how old are you?
97.
97. Wow. And look how great. And you served in the USO in World War II. And you traveled the world, or much of the world.
Well, through Asia and through quite a few places.
How did you end up joining the USO?
I was asked to join, and I thought, I'm going to take advantage. I knew the European language and what was going on, but I knew nothing about the Far East.
Yeah.
And I went to the Far East.
Okay, but what about your parents? I mean, this is what?
They were happy to get rid of me. Are you kidding? Me? Oh. Oh. Ask my neighbor. She'll tell you to this day.
Look at these wonderful pictures.
Korea.
Who are these guys?
I don't know. They didn't say. But it was in Korea. What do you have? Any others?
Oh, I have others. What were the shows like? Where did you perform them? Who came to see them?
On the back of a trailer, on just anywhere, and it was wonderful. It was really what these boys really were just great to us.
And they loved it and they appreciated it.
Yeah.
It was so important to morale. I mean, in the days before the internet, obviously, in the days before television, and it's not like these service members were even getting radio or occasional movies, but this was really special.
And I had a cousin who was a stagehand with, Bob Hope. Bob Hope.
Wow.
And he traveled with him everywhere, and so it was great.
What's this? A troop carrier.
That's what we traveled in.
Really?
We traveled in troop carriers.
Okay, so this is probably like, I don't know, maybe a C-47. Is that a C-130? These things, you know, do we know? C-46. C-46, okay, so that was a C-46, this plane. If you've ever seen a C-46, they're
comfortable.
they're not comfortable, they're pretty darn rickety, and they're thin. I don't think I would fly in one for 10 minutes or so. Were you, well, I'm a coward. Would you, were you ever scared?
No. Who is he? No.
Okay.
No, there's no reason to be. There's our troop. That's in China.
And that's in China.
That's in China. At the gate, at the hotel, you see the sign above it.
Could you imagine what China was like 80 years ago? This is before the revolution, before Mao Zedong took over. I mean, this is old China.
And I met John Glenn in China.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
Wow. And, oh, look at this. So these are Sun Telegraph articles about you, I think, right?
Yes. And a gal, I called her Mom because she was taller than I and she was so much smarter. And we just got along beautifully.
Okay, so this, here's you and
Enid.
Enid. And the caption is this: near the end of a journey, a USO camp show tour that began in New York last October and took them to the Orient and the Pacific Islands is almost over for Pat Brannigan, left, and Enid Raleigh. Miss Brannigan, a Pittsburgh dancer, and Miss Raleigh, a Detroit singer, related that their most exciting experience occurred in China when communists blew up the tracks in front of and behind their train. Tell us about that.
Well, the tracks were blown up, and
You were stranded.
yeah, for a short period of time.
Okay.
Our boys came through and got us out, but
And here's you playing the clarinet.
yes, my brothers, it was, but believe me, it was all fake because I couldn't.
You couldn't play.
No, no. No, the nuns couldn't teach me to play piano, and no one else could teach me anything else.
So looking back on this, you know, you would come home and you would spend a long career in theater. What did this time mean to you? Because I have a sense you feel very close to veterans, military veterans, and to the American military. I mean, you feel like you are part of that community.
Well, I had a brother in the Army, one in the Navy, one in the Marines, and my father was a World War I veteran, and it meant a lot to me. It really did. So I'm happy to have served what I did.
And what a wonderful adventure for a young woman.
Yes, and then coming home, I was in the theater because my father and my uncle, my cousins were all stagehands. So we started Civic Light Opera, and so it's been a.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much, Pat. Oh my God. Oh, and Pat made a mistake. She's 98. You lied, Pat. 98 years old. 98 years young. What an amazing history is in this room. David, could you stand up, please? You're a Navy. Let's get the Navy involved here. You're a Navy veteran. You joined the Navy really because, well, you were broke and going to get drafted.
Exactly. I was broke, so broke. I had paid for 3 years of medical school, the first 3, and then I was out of money. And I had very few options, and the military at that time had fantastic scholarships that you just sign on the paper, and instead of serving 4 years like everyone else that came out, instead of 3, I had to serve 4. So it was a year of service for a year of pay in medical school. And it was a great deal. I lived like a king. All the other students were as broke as I had been. And here I got full pay and allowances of a 04, which is an ensign, 04, for that last year of medical school. It was fantastic.
Yeah, but David, you were, you know, your commitment was only what, 3 years, 4 years?
Well, everyone was being drafted unless you were in the medical business or dentist. And so this thing I got 4 years instead of 3. Yeah,
4 years. Okay, so 4-year commitment, but you stayed 20.
exactly.
Why?
I loved it so much. Well, it was a great opportunity. Got to travel, met a lot of fine people, and the work was exactly what I had been doing as a resident or as a junior officer, JO, and just moved on up the chain when I was in for the 4 years and then stayed and got finally promoted to captain, which is basically the highest rank that physicians will get unless you go into administration, and then it's admiral. So I was in a portion of medicine where I got to practice, same thing as when I got out, but it was, again, in the military, which was fine, got a very nice pension. It put our daughter and son through graduate school, and the educational benefits were very, very good. Pay was good, benefits were good, enjoyed it.
And you retired then as a captain?
Yes, retired as an 06. Again, admiral is 07. Very few medical corps people become 07s, but a lot become 06s. And that was me.
And that's the equivalent in the Army of a lieutenant colonel?
No,
A full colonel?
Full colonel.
Woo.
bird colonel. Yeah.
Bird colonel. Sorry about that,
Yeah.
Captain. Thank you very much, Dave. You joined the Marine Corps, correct?
No.
Could you stand up? Gordon, tell me about your military service.
Well, I was a teacher, and I wanted to teach chemistry, but the school didn't have a high school yet. They were just a junior high school. And they said, but they're going to build a high school here, and if you teach 2 years in the elementary school, after that, we'll push you into the chemistry. So I thought, that's great. So I taught 2 years, and then I got drafted. Fortunately, the school kept me on the list during those 2 years that I had to go.
Yeah.
And when I went through all the usual stuff that you have to do, I figured I was probably going to go to Korea.
And what year was this?
Well, let's see, I graduated in college in, let's see, this would be I graduated high school in 1950. So,
Okay, so 52 maybe?
yep, right, exactly, about 52.
Korean War is still going on.
Right. And so the day that we took all these courses, we had one course where the first day we learned how to write small whole numbers and add them up. Now that was the second class that I took. And the second day they asked us to subtract numbers. And there was a woman teacher, and I went up and I said, look, I've been getting ready to teach chemistry. I don't really need this crap that you're, and she smiled, she said, I have to do it because that's what they have to. So I took the book that they gave me to write on, and I wrote little notes to my friends, all telling them why they're getting notes on little tiny things, because I said, the paper's free, and I'm sitting here learning nothing.
Got nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do, you know. Finally, they did send me into getting the final shots to go somewhere. But they told us there was going to be 2 lines here. There's going to be a long line, they're going to Korea. They're going a short line, you're going over to Europe. Well, I figured, you know,
Yeah.
chances are.
Yeah.
I got in the short line. They took me by boat over to Germany, got on a train, that's all I saw, Germany. And they went through Germany and then into France. And I spent the rest of my time in a company south of Paris, several miles south. And I had the best job in the world, and I hadn't to do anything, really.
Well, you had to go see Paris.
Well, that was another story entirely.
Sure.
Actually, I knew a girl when I went there.
Here we go.
I didn't date her. She dated a friend of mine and got married. And I thought, that's very nice, you know. And I'd forgotten about her and him. And one day, after I'd been over in France only 2 weeks, and they told us, don't expect mail because it all comes by boat at that time. So it takes about 4 or 5 weeks to get a letter out here. So you're wasting time going to,
Yeah.
you know, the mail. But I went anyway because I didn't know anyone. I wanted to meet people. And about the second week, they called my name for mail. And he said, wait a minute. We weren't even allowed off the base until the first 6 weeks. I hadn't been there that long. He said, how come you're getting mail from Paris, France? I said, I don't know. I've never been to Paris, France. I just got here. Well, he says, your name's on it. It's on the Paris mail. I opened it up, Apparently that girl that I knew that married a friend of mine over here had a sister.
Had a sister.
Had a sister who lived with her mother. The mother was American, and she had gone over to France years ago during World War I and married a Frenchman.
Right.
And she had 2 girls, and the girls grew up as Frenchmen. When she finally, both of them reached the age where they had a choice to be French or American, they both changed to be French because that's all they knew.
Yeah.
And then one of the girls came to visit an aunt over here and fell in love, and that's the girl that I knew first. So they invited me to come up. We had a good time. They had a car. They took me to places I had never seen in Paris. And I dated her when I had the chance, you know. And on some holiday, she said, I have an uncle that lives up in one of the high buildings, not too many high buildings in Paris, but we're going to have a party, and they've invited you to come. And I was beginning to realize that, you know, they're planning on me to marry this girl.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that because I wanted to get a master's degree at least eventually when I got home, and that costs money and time.
Yeah.
You know,
You didn't have time for this nonsense with the French girl.
right. So we had a good time over there.
I love that story.
And I
Thank
said,
you.
I said goodbye, and we wrote a few letters, and then
That was it.
That was the end of that.
That sounds like a wonderful adventure
Oh, yeah.
for a young man.
Yeah, but I feel guilty about my military life because I really didn't do anything.
Here we go. That's it. Thank you, Gordon, very much. Here we go. Okay, Colonel McClinchy. And I like your socks, by the way. Look at that. We match, kind of. Look at that. All right. Got red, white, and blue socks. Could you stand up? So do I. So how many years in the Marine Corps for you?
Total of 32.
32 years, you retired a colonel. What made you want to join the Marine Corps? And don't say because I wanted to join the best.
Because I was drafted in the Army. Yeah.
You were drafted in the Army. Well, the Army, you know, you heard Gordon, you could have fun in the Army.
I had 2 years of Army ROTC experience in college, and it wasn't a good experience. No,
At Bucknell.
at Bucknell.
So you decided to go into the Marine Corps.
As an enlisted man, because the officer selection officer in Pittsburgh, with my vision, wouldn't even talk to me.
So you made rank the hard way.
Well, I went to Paris Island and went through boot camp. Then I went to infantry training, and I was a PFC, and I had orders to Vietnam as a PFC, to the 3rd Marine Division. And fortunately, a Yalie, who was the company XO, called me into his office and said, I have your record book here. You have a degree from Bucknell. Why are you a snuffy?
Yeah.
I said, well, the OSA wouldn't even talk to me in Pittsburgh. He said, well, I'm terminating your orders to Vietnam, and you're going to work in the company office, and your first job is to put together your own package for applying for OCS.
For OCS.
Yes.
So you went to OCS.
Yes.
So you.
And then all within a period of 1 year. I started, well, from November of '64, and I was commissioned as second lieutenant in December of '65.
So you get commissioned second lieutenant. When do you go to Vietnam?
After 26 weeks of the basic school, which is a finishing course for Marine officers. GBS, right. And directly to Vietnam after that.
And what was your job in Vietnam?
Infantry platoon commander.
Platoon commander. And this is you here on the right?
Correct. And Staff Sergeant Cox, who's my platoon sergeant.
What do you remember arriving in Vietnam in 1966? Do you remember any first impressions when you landed?
I wasn't surprised by anything. The interesting thing was a group of lieutenants, we were all assigned, we all reported the 1st Marine Division, which was in Chulai at that point. And we were assigned to different battalions. And we all got on a truck and went to our respective battalions and companies. And there was a driver and a shotgun, a driver with a rifle. The rest of us had no weapons or anything.
Couldn't be trusted.
Yeah, well, we were driving through the Badlands and we had no weapons because we hadn't been issued one yet.
Now this looks like a picture on a patrol.
Oh, this is on an operation in back in the Ashaw Valley, and that guy on the left is me.
Do you mean in the foreground? Right there, that's you.
Correct.
Were you ever scared?
Not really,
Why?
because I had a job to do.
Because you were focused on the job.
Absolutely. One of the most painful things I ever experienced, and this was certainly no Purple Heart, was on a operation where we were advancing on a North Vietnamese Army unit. Went through a thicket, and a thorn went through my eyelid, and was scratching my eye. And I'm there, shoot me,
Yeah.
shoot me, shoot me. And rounds were singing everywhere. Nobody hit me.
Now, you did get hit eventually, because I do see a Purple Heart here.
2 of them.
2 of them. Purple Heart with an oak leaf cluster.
No, just the Gold Star.
Oh, the Gold Star. Tell me about getting wounded.
One was a punji stake through my leg.
Oh. Can you explain what a punji stick is? I call it a punji stick.
Punji stake.
Punji stake, okay.
There's a pit, usually maybe 2 by 3, or maybe even smaller, and there are these spikes, and they've covered it with a mat or grass or something of that nature, and we had been hit, and I hit the deck, and my leg went into this hole, and the punji stake went through my knee.
And the stake is usually made out of bamboo. It's sharpened, and then it's dipped in feces, animal or human feces, to make it infectious so that you'll get quickly infected. And there are all kinds of different punji traps. And you got one in the knee.
Correct.
Ugh. Grosses me out.
The second one was a head wound.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that one.
It was a concussion wound. I was on a tracked vehicle and we hit a 250-pound anti-tank mine.
And you got thrown up in the air out of the vehicle?
Fortunately, we were on top. But the good thing was that the fuel cells, there are 7 fuel cells on these amphibious tractors, 3 on the left side, 3 on the right, and 1 in the back. And I was on the left side, and fortunately, those fuel cells were empty. And that's where the mine was. And blew off that track, blew us off the vehicle, but there was no fire.
So that's why you're here today.
I guess.
Thank you so much. Okay, I want to end. I know we're at the close of the program, but I can't. Rose, I'm going to ask you if you would mind stepping out here. Rose Gantner is another person who's not technically a veteran, which is an issue. Hey, you've given a talk here about your service, right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
I served 2 tours in Vietnam when I was 22 and 24 years old.
Look at that face.
That's in Pleiku.
In Play Coup, the only person smiling, filling sandbags.
Well, they were filling sandbags. They would say, "Oh, I got to do this." They said, "Oh, well, give me a shovel. Let me help you." And then we start kidding around and having a good time.
And for those who haven't heard your talk, could you explain what the Red Cross Overseas program was?
The SRAO program was for women between the ages of 21 to 26, all college graduates, all leaders in their classes, and they were in diversified fields such as journalism, English, math, history, acting, and our job was to provide morale, and we offered recreational programs in the forward fire bases to all the infantry, Marines, and all the Army folks throughout the entire 15 different units throughout South Vietnam. And all the girls served 1 year, and it was the greatest experience of my life.
And here you are with the Army, I think.
Oh yeah, that's with the 3rd of the 25th Infantry Division, and I'm not supposed to show it, and I'm glad you didn't show it, but I had a gun there, an M16 in my hand, and we weren't allowed to carry weapons, but one of the fun things to do when you're out in forward fire bases is the guys are cleaning their rifles and taking it apart and putting it together, and they taught me how to clean it and put it together, so it was kind of cool.
There were, I believe, 627
Yes.
people like Red Cross, you were called volunteers, Red Cross volunteers that were referred to as donut dollies. 627 of them. 2, I believe, died in Vietnam. 4 died in Vietnam. Jenny
3 in Vietnam and one later on, yeah.
one later on. This was dangerous duty. I mean, they, obviously they weren't handling weapons, or supposed to be, but they were flying in Huey helicopters from this fire base to that fire base to this base, and there were shots taken at you, and
Oh, all the time. And my first tour, I was in Pleiku, Chu Lai, Nha Trang. But my second tour, I was the executive administrator, the second in command of all the girls in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I had to travel throughout 15 units deployed throughout all Vietnam, South Vietnam. And I was only in Saigon 1 day a week where I lived with a nurse. But the rest of the time, I was out in the forward fire bases. This is Christmas Day. And we were flying around with the colonel and the Air Force to all the bases throughout South Vietnam and trying to make it in 1 day. So that was kind of neat. The girl in the middle is Jenny Lucebrink, who eventually died, but she was just a sweetheart, and she was from Pittsburgh too.
oh, how neat.
This is, and we went out with Martha Ray. We worked 6 days a week from 7 a.m. till about 8 o'clock at night, because during the day we were out doing the programs. In the evening we were with the Army nurses in the hospitals, where the wonderful, fabulous Army nurses were taking care of the wounded. We try to take care of their morale and hold their hand and help them. And this is, on Sundays, we would go out with Martha Ray and different people to the Mountain Yard Village. And we taught them how to do hygiene and different things like that. And it was a terrific experience. And the tribal chief gave me, you sit down in a circle and you drink from this cup.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, man, all these 8, 9 different Vietnamese are drinking. And he says, so I drank with the cup too. And then he gave me not a bow and arrow, what's it called? Crossbow.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you're way more adventurous than me. So you'll see these people in the background, they're not Vietnamese.
Yeah.
They're not Vietnamese. They're from ethnic minorities that live in the mountains. And in Vietnam, they were referred to as Montagnards, mountain people. They tended overwhelmingly to side with the American side in the war. And so there was a lot of outreach to them.
Right.
And to this day, they don't speak Vietnamese. They have a different culture, different language, different religion. There are many different groups, ethnic groups. And you can see some of them here are in uniform, so they're kind of a paramilitary militia, probably working and being trained by the Americans at some point.
And that's in Nha Trang at a center where they also had a recreational center, and most of the time we were out in forward fire bases, but we also had a center where people could come and play ping pong, shoot pool, do different things, and that's the kind of official uniforms we wore when we were in a center. When we were in the field, it was totally different. This is Christmas Day out in the Highlands area, and this is a Orthodox group. We always ask the clergyman, don't you have an Orthodox minister? I says, it's nice that we have all these other people, but I've never seen an Orthodox priest or minister. And that day they had one for all of us. They got us together, and that's an Army nurse in the middle, who was just delightful. So that was great. That was a Christmas day. This is Jenny Loosebring. This is with the Colonel. He really liked us because we took good care of his people. And he asked us what would we want when they would go to Cambodia back and forth and fly back to Vietnam. And we said, bring us chocolate candy and penny, good and plenty. So we gave them to the troops.
You know, and you should know that these donut dollies were screened very closely for this work. You had to be single, you had to be a college graduate, and this is my favorite part, you had to have the right personality. Which I think translates that you had to be like reasonably attractive, but also you had to be adventurous, you had to be upbeat. You had to be able to smile in the face of danger and adversity, and you were tested for all that.
Oh yes, when we were in D.C. for 2 weeks, we had psychiatric exams, we had training, because they have to make sure someone's not going to freak out when you're dealing with some real tragedies and everything, and that you're a solid person with good leadership and training.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Rose, how did this time in Vietnam, the first tour and then the second, how did it shape the rest of your life? How did it influence you?
Oh, tremendously. I was very blessed to be an executive at an early young age in different psychiatric hospitals afterwards, and in healthcare all my life as a VP for big national organizations. And all that, I definitely know my experience in Vietnam shaped me, so at a very young age, I was blessed to have tremendous leadership, because at that time, women didn't get ahead like that. I remember being at Magellan Health Services at their headquarters in Atlanta, and there was this big table with about 20 people sitting there, and they're all men. And I walk in, and they say, well, congratulations, you're one of the first females to be the CEO of 2 psychiatric hospitals. You know?
So, I mean, I just imagine it must have been a tremendous confidence boost. I mean, if you could do Vietnam, you could do just about anything, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rose. We're so proud of you. So thank you for spending part of your Veterans Day here together with us and sharing these stories. Again, I do want to invite you, if you'd like to attend, on December 10th at Christ Church Grove Farm. We'd love to have you. Take care.
Hold on, folks. There's one last part of this program. If you will please stand. Thank you.